Here's a brief one here on the Malthusian Theory. So this is a little bit of history in this one, but some more graphs. All right, so let's try to get me from going too much into history. You need to know about this guy, Thomas Malthus, right? He was alive from 1766 to 1834. So right away, think what was going on at that time. If you think of our country, think of like the Revolution and the early Republic, right? But he was from Britain. So think of what was going on over there. Obviously, they were involved with our revolution too, but you have the Industrial Revolution and all those things going on. He was a British economist. He actually also received holy orders, but he did not have a career in the church. And a lot of times you hear his names in terms of biology, in a biology class. Darwin in his work was largely inspired or connected, influenced some ways by Malthus. He read him. But he was actually a political economist. So think of things that deal with the government and think of things that deal with money and resources. He was the first person to really sound the alarm about population growth. Like, hey, there's too many people. This is not good. We should do something about it. He was the opposite of Hans Rosling. All right. He saw the population and it was possibly outpacing food production, and he thought the government should step in and do something about it. He thought the population growth was natural, um, and he thought that if people aren't going to do anything about this, the problems that come from it were God's way to prevent people from being lazy. All right, that's nothing you need to know for the test, but I want to include some history in here. All right, think now, why was England sort of a mess at the time? I mean, it was globally, it was a superpower, but what was going on at home? You learned about this when you studied the Industrial Revolution as a freshman, and you learned about the crowded conditions and the disease spreading, and people drinking the water that was contaminated with all these things. So he blamed it on three reasons. He said the overproduction of young people. Basically, people were having too many kids. That resources couldn't keep up with all these people. Well, there is some truth to that, right? When the Industrial Revolution happened very quickly, right, there was this lag before there were enough resources to deal with this population, whether it be schools, law enforcement, hospitals, but also just the things that people need to live, water, whatever you need to heat your house, whatever. And he also thought that the lower classes were irresponsible. Why were these lower classes having all these children that they can't support? Tisk, tisk, tisk. All right. So he suggested that the government should regulate how many children the lower classes could have so that they don't have more that they could support. Um, think of not too far from like other neonatalist policies, right, were preventing people from having children that's still around today, right? In 1798, he wrote an essay on the principle of population as it affects the future improvement of society. So, like, this was a published idea. All right, I'm going to try to refrain from all this history, but know that he was basically a guy that was not full of hope, and he was like full of gloom. Like, this is bad, people. We got to do something about this. All right, like I said, opposite of Hans Rosling. So he's like, all right, this is the end of times if we don't do anything about it. He says the population is going to outpace the food supply, and then you're not going to have food, and this will be a crisis. He said that populations grow geometrically and food supplies grow arithmetically. Right? I'm not a political economist. I don't know what exactly he means by this, but basically that the population is a natural growth, and then there's people sort of responsible for making sure there was all these food resources, and that the rates did not match up, is what you basically need to know. Keep in mind, he made this prediction when Britain at the time was in stage 2. So think about it. If we're in stage 4 now, they were in stage 2 of the democratic transition model. Most countries weren't even there yet. Many countries were still in stage 1. So they were like, yeah, first world problems, this is not our concern over here. All right. Now, this image above is actually obviously past his time because, photography, right? But keep in mind, it's like that same sort of idea with disease spreading and children everywhere. And, was this like a crisis? So this is, when you see this graph, think of the Malthusian model. All right. One line is the population. The population's growing up. Then the other line, you have resources, right? At some point, the population is going to surpass the resources. That is your point of crisis. So if you're a Malthusian, you want to figure out where is that intersection, and you want to take care of things before it gets there. All right. Not everyone was fond of his ideas because, like I said, some weren't even at a stage two, so they're like, "Yeah, not our problem. Go figure it out, Britain." Little too alarmist, little too scary, little too like people wanted a little bit more butterflies and rainbows, a little bit more Hans Rosling. All right. Also, people thought this was anti-family. When we saw the Hans Rosling videos, do you ever feel bad maybe for some of the women who maybe did want more than one or two children? Maybe some of those families just did, and people today still do. So maybe it's just anti-family. Was it anti-patriotic to not want to have children in your country? Shouldn't you're the best country, right? Shouldn't your country have people, future soldiers someday, future employers someday, right? Also, religious groups were not thrilled either. Often religions encouraged having large families. Often religions discouraged birth control methods. So they're like, yeah, not us, Malthus. So Malthus was like, well, it's everybody picking on me. All right. Today, there are still people who sort of believe in some of his ideas, if not all of it, at least understanding the point. This essay from The Atlantic was from the spring of 23, I think, so not too long ago. But let's be honest, the 20th century did see a large growth in population, and they saw there's still some validity today. Some of the people that believe in his ideas are called neo-Malthusians or new Malthusians. And they might not have all the same focuses, but they focus a lot on the environment. What resources are we running out of in the environment? And whether it be, you know, certain plants, certain animals, certain, any sort of resource. And that there is still a crisis point that's possible. We have to keep making sure we're not there. All right. So, regardless of what you believe, it's important to know about this theory. And we'll stop it there.